Hi, everybody. I'm Susie Hubley, and I'm a member of the worship committee. Good morning, and welcome to Allen Avenue Unitarian Universalist Church's in-person and online worship. Whether today is your first time here or you've been coming for years, we're glad you're with us. My name is Susie. My pronouns are she and her, and I'm a member of the worship committee. We are growing a community that transforms lives through the power of love. Our mission calls us to celebrate diversity, encourage spiritual growth, and promote social responsibility while we travel on and care for the earth. A special welcome to those at home who are joining us on Zoom today. If you're attending for the first time, please go to our website and fill out the welcome card so that we can get to know you. This morning's service about family heirlooms and other stuff is presented by Allen Avenue's worship committee. Lay-led worship is a tradition at this and many other Unitarian Universalist societies. At Allen Avenue, the worship committee either sponsors or presents one such service a month. On most other Sundays, services are led by our minister, Reverend Tara Humphreys. And Dale, our music director, isn't here today, so we'll be using other sources of music. And Cynthia Martin will be playing piano for us for the hymns. And Keith Prairie had planned to be here in person to play his hammered dulcimer, but he's not able to be. And so he provided some audio files, so you'll be hearing those. And I have 3 announcements. First of all, a party. You're all invited to come hang out, play games, and maybe dance with us. March 7th, Saturday, 6 to 9 p.m. Stuff, and more stuff. That's appropriate. The organizers of this year's A2U2 yard sale couldn't possibly let a topic like this go by without a little nudge from us to encourage you to sort your stuff and bring some of it to this year's A2U2 fundraising 5th annual yard sale on Saturday, April 11th. We will again have an indoor yard sale like we did last year. For more info, talk with either Emily O'Neill or Polly Juno. And share the plate nominations are needed. It is our tradition to share 1/3 of each Sunday's offering to a nonprofit organization chosen by members of the congregation. Do you have a nonprofit organization that you would like to nominate for the next church year? If so, there's a link to submit your nomination in the e-blast. Paper forms are also available on the Social Justice Bulletin Board in the foyer. Nominations will be collected through Sunday, March 29th. The Social Justice Committee will evaluate the nominees and make recommendations to the board. For more information, see Jim Mason or Julie Harrison. Now, we invite you all to take this opportunity to silence your cell phones so that we can be fully present to one another. After the service, please grab a cup of coffee or tea and stay for conversation, or head down to the end of the long hallway to join a group for the brown bag lunch. Those on Zoom may stay on and connect with one another. And now, let us center our hearts and minds with the sound of the singing bowl.
Good morning. My name is Bill Burge, pronounced he, him. Last Tuesday evening, the Islamic religion began the holy month of Ramadan. The next day, the Christian religion began the holy season of Lent. During these blessed days, we gather with hearts full of gratitude for creation's benevolence, Some of that benevolence manifests in the many items that populate our homes. The significance of Ramadan lies in the spiritual cleansing of hearts and minds that includes the observance of fasting from dawn to dusk. Each day offers fresh opportunities to strengthen connection and to practice compassion. This month, from new moon to new moon, may we find a way to connect with the ultimate, each according to our own ways of understanding and experiencing the world. And now for the chalice lighting. As we light the flame of the chalice, we invite those on Zoom to light their own chalices or candles so that we can be connected with one another. Our light is the light of the sun, keeper of all we love. Our light is the light of the earth, provider of sustenance. Our light is the light of all living things, life precious like our own. Our light is the light of each of us bound together in need and hope. Our light is the light of the cosmos, keeper of all we know. Hymn to the Light by David Breeden. Now for the opening hymn, number 361, Cynthia will play it through, and then we'll rise to sing, all in spirit or body.
Good morning. My name is Erica Bartlett, and I was wondering how many of you have seen at least one of the Toy Story movies? Okay, good. So you'll know what I'm talking about. I've seen all 4 of them, and now there's a 5th one coming out. But just in case, for those who aren't as familiar, the movies follow the adventures of Andy's toys, Woody, Buzz, and more, who come alive when they're not being watched. But by Toy Story 3, Andy has grown up and is going off to college, and the toys are worried about what will happen to them. Their options aren't great: being stuck in the dusty attic, never to be played with again, to be donated to a daycare, or to be thrown out. I faced a similar moment with some of my toys, but long after I went to college. It was only 9 years ago that I finally decided it was time to do something with my favorite childhood toys, my collection of My Little Ponies. Any of you familiar with My Little Ponies? Yes. I was a huge fan of them when I was a kid, and I was just the right age when they first came out. The initial 6 My Little Ponies were introduced in 1982, when I was 6, and as a horse-obsessed kid, what could be better than colorful little ponies with pretty designs on them and long tails and manes for me to braid? It wasn't long before I had all of the original ones, but then Hasbro started producing more, and not just ponies. They had unicorns, winged ponies, baby ponies, ponies with fluttering wings, and some with twinkling eyes, and even some sea ponies. And at least into the late 1980s, I was set on getting as many as I could. I tried to find out how many were produced, but I couldn't get exact numbers. I'm pretty sure I had at least 24. I know that since then, new versions of the ponies have come out, plus movies and shows, but I never got into those. When I wasn't playing with them, my pony collection lived on a long shelf in my bedroom at home, even while I was at college. When I graduated and got my own place, I packed them all into a trunk and brought them with me, and apart from a few I put out on shelves, they stayed in the trunk. I have to say, seeing Woody, Buzz, and the others of Andy's toys stuck in their trunk made me feel a little bit guilty about leaving my ponies in one. What finally got me to do something with them was when I redid my living room in 2017. I went through my book collection to downsize, which included giving away all of my Black Stallion books to someone here at church for her kids to read. But her kids were a bit too old for the ponies. Then I thought of my friend Dawn, whose children might be young enough to still appreciate them. I asked her what she thought, and she said absolutely. So in April 2017, I brought the whole bunch of ponies with me to give away. It was somewhat bittersweet. Somehow, even in my 40s, it was hard to let go of that connection to my childhood. I really identified with Andy at the end of Toy Story 3, choosing to give his special toys to another child who could also love them. And it did make it easier to see my friends' children immediately start playing with the ponies and coming up with their own names for them. Although it was a bit sad to say goodbye to my collection, I'm also glad that I found a home for them. Even though I don't think they come to life when they're not being watched, it's good to know that they got some extra playtime and a second chance long after I had outgrown them.
I now have the My Little Pony theme song stuck in my head. My little pony, precious pony. In a few moments, some of us will leave the sanctuary to enjoy religious education programming, which, fun fact, it's Sunday, so we're making Sundays. Also talking about covenant, but first I invite our lamplighter, Alice, to join me in the pulpit. The enthusiasm. A lamplighter is entrusted to transfer the light of the sanctuary chalice to the lamp and then go forth to RE spaces where they will light the chalices there. I invite those going to RE to follow the lamplighter as we carry the flame, expanding our sacred space.
Good morning. I'm Rick Kimball, and I'm a member of the worship committee. And I stand before you to speak about stuff. We all have much useless stuff. Much more than just enough. What will we do with all this stuff? Who would want Aunt Tilda's muff? Or an heirloom like a link for a cuff? Or a wig dyed white to look like fluff? Or all that other useless stuff? What to do? Oh, that is tough. Toss out so much of our old stuff that we're left standing in the buff. Well, in Maine winters, that'd be rough. To sit and shiver on bare duff. Oh, what to do with all our stuff. Here's Uncle Louie's box of snuff and his cousin's powder puff. What air would want this kind of stuff? Too much we have of stuff to slough. What shall we do with all this stuff? By way of answer, I would huff, or I could cuff, but my ideas would be a bluff, or better yet, just call it guff. What should we do with all this stuff? I have no idea. But maybe somebody else does. In the next few minutes, we'll hear what other members of the worship committee have to say. Then it will be your turn as we open the mic and ask you to share your own stuff about stuff.
Beloved companions, we don't have to impress or convince or win over. We don't have to know the words. It's okay that we didn't read the book or pass that class or make that mark. We don't have to be anything but who we are. Here we are in essence together to move into this communal rest. We lay down our burdens, our longings, our cravings, our unmet need, our error, our regret, our sudden disappointment, our anxiety, our shame, our sheer exhaustion, our bewilderment, our bafflement, our burgeoning terror. All of this we lay down together today. And as we do, may we be filled instead with presence. May we feel held in the comfort of our community. May we discover new compassion for ourselves and others. May we meet this moment with gentleness, ease, and gratitude for the air we breathe, for the questions that we ask together, for the justice that we seek together, and for the songs we sing together. My reflection this morning is called a confession. I have stuff. You see some of it here. Stuff that's been passed down from my mother and father, from my husband's mother and family, and I also have stuff that friends have given me. When my mother-in-law died, she had a teacup list, but the items that remained in her kitchen drawers were all wanted and equitably divided among her 7 children, each very anxious to keep an item. We have a large house to store and display stuff. And I can't explain to you why I love to collect things, and will confess that at Christmas time, no judgment here, but I have over 300 angels to decorate with. I have collections of things like parrots and a multitude of little boxes that my husband has given me. I've never stopped to count them, but there are many, many of them. And a long time ago, I started to collect pitchers, little jugs or creamers. And thinking about it, I wrote the following poem, which I would like to share with you. And it sort of summarizes my feelings about collecting. Little pitchers, which are required by definition to have both a handle and a lip, and angels In my view, it's impossible to have too many, but that is another story. Salvaged from the waste stream, often still perfect, and a seldom used piece from a china collection. I leave the sugar bowls for someone else. When someone counts them, it surprises me. So many. How did that happen? They have sprouted like wildflowers in spring. And when I dust them, I marvel at their lovely shape, ready to hold a cup of milk, handles and spouts like little teapots, lacking lids, ready to share, handy for a note, a button, a seashell, things just too good to throw away. Different in size and shape, some plain and no nonsense. Many have fanciful designs that reflect another time of place. They are squat, sturdy, or eggshell fragile, and bone china thin. The morning light will shine right through. Hold your hand behind one and you'll see. And just a few are cracked. In winter, they sit on the window sills, lined up by size facing the latch, like sentries behind a lace curtain. In summer, when we open the curtain and need to move them, he says, "Why are there so many?" struggling to open the window that is stuck, and then they spread from the kitchen to the dining room and beyond. Heirlooms are a burden nowadays, but perhaps some inventive survivor will take them to Goodwill or sell them online. However, I would like to imagine children, or maybe children's children, finding a favorite and taking it home, using it to warm maple syrup for a stack of morning pancakes, or cream on a day when they can linger over coffee. At worst, they're dust collectors, full of dried up sticky rubber bands and the odd screw. But when gathered together, they come alive and always look their best after grooming.
A year and a half ago, I decided to redo my spare room and take out the bed in it, since no one had slept there in years. That also required me to go through all the boxes under the bed, most of which I hadn't touched since I moved to my condo almost 25 years ago. It felt a bit like an archaeological dig, and I did find some fun things, like the ticket to my first big-name concert, which was seeing Paul Simon in 1991. But I also found some things that had me scratching my head. The best example was my college calculus book. Why on earth had I kept that? Did I really think I was going to do a lot of calculus post-college? I don't know for sure, but finding the book did remind me of the circumstances when I used it. I was in the somewhat unusual situation of going to the same university as my brother, Northeastern University, and even more unusual was the fact that we were in the same Calculus 4 class. It was my freshman year, his sophomore year, and thanks to my advanced placement calculus test, I got to skip taking Calc 1 and 2. My brother didn't, though, so he ended up getting through Calculus 3 around the same time as me, and that put us in Calc 4 together. It was a strange and somewhat difficult year for me. Going to Boston, after growing up in a town of about 3,500, was a huge culture shock. I had to learn to use the subway, and apart from 1 month of summer camp, I'd never shared a room with anyone before. And even though I only shared a room with one person, I was in a suite with 2 other people, which meant sharing the bathroom with 3 strangers. It did help that my RA was my brother's friend, and that my brother introduced me around at the Honors Lounge, but it was still a lot to adjust to. I finally felt like I'd settled a bit by December, and then January was when we had our Calc 4 class. One of my suite mates was in it as well, and I remember how after one pretty intense class, we both dreamt about doing calculus homework. And then halfway through January was when my brother found out he was going to unexpectedly be a father, and I realized I'd be an aunt. I had never imagined that happening before I even hit 20, and it was a big adjustment all around. We actually ended up getting a tutor for the calculus class because it was hard to grasp some of the more esoteric concepts, especially with other pressing matters. Somehow, both my brother and I got through that class, and we even did pretty well. But I think we were also glad to be done with calculus. All of that came back to me when I found my old calculus textbook. And I wondered if, back in 2001 when I moved to my condo, I'd kept it as a reminder of how much I'd been able to adapt to and overcome. So much of my college experience wasn't what I expected. Witnessing a birth, babysitting, helping get my niece to daycare, and watching Elmo, among other things. I did have some fun along the way, but it was very different than what I'd pictured. It's not something I think about as much all these years later, but it occurred to me that the reason many of us keep so much stuff is to remind us of earlier times, of events that feel like a lifetime ago, but are still part of our lives. Even so, I admit that I recycled the calculus book, but I did appreciate that it took me back to a different time of my life, at least for a little while. And now is the time in our service when we engage in the spiritual practice of generosity. Our gifts support the ministries of this congregation and our work in the broader community. Each week, 1/3 of our offering is given away to a local nonprofit organization doing work to advance our shared values in the world. This month's Share the Plate recipient is Furniture Friends, whose mission is to reduce homelessness and improve housing stability by collecting gently used furniture and distributing it to low-income individuals and families across southern Maine. Donations can be made now, as the basket is passed, through the donate button on our website, or if you're a member, on Breeze, remembering to make note that your gift is for Share the Plate. If you're visiting us for the first time this morning, please know that your presence is your gift to us. At this time, our offering will be collected and gratefully received.
I'm Leslie McConnell, and I'm a member of the worship committee. And I'm here to tell you that I am the queen of family heirlooms, and not necessarily by choice. In 1990, my soon-to-be husband, Ted, and I bought an old farmhouse in Naples with lots of small, rambling rooms. And I'm letting you know what came next, not for sympathy, but so that you can understand our predicament. In the next 10 years, we lost a lot of family members, including my grandfather, my mother, Ted's dad, Ted's aunt who had no children, and Ted's mother. So during this time, we also had 2 little kids, and because we lacked the energy, we were unable to turn away all the stuff that came our way. And it was a lot. When all the boxes from Ted's parents' house were stacked on our porch, I admit I had a bit of a meltdown. I had him take the kids away for the weekend, and a good friend and I weeded, sorted, and integrated great heaps of things into our household. I believe that my generation might be the last where no one really asked us what we might want. It was just on a list somewhere, or somebody beside us decided it was about to become ours. A lot of stuff was now, what I realized, kind of foisted on us. But I did manage to leave a chair at Ted's family home that I knew literally would not fit into our house. It was a great, big, wingback chair that almost looked like a throne, covered in royal blue velvet. Not a great choice for a family with 2 boys, 2 dogs, and 3 cats. Ted said, "But it's on the list." And I said, "Your mother is never going to know." That was about my only victory. So there were some advantages to being the recipient of a lot of stuff. And here's a couple examples. I never bought a couch until I was 48 years old. And I never bought a real new set of dishes until I was 62. In the last few years after our children have launched, I have been weeding out stuff that we don't want, we don't need, or we never really liked. Ask our friend Paul. He is now the happy owner of a rocking chair that looks like Abraham Lincoln's mother should be sitting in it, complete with, you guessed it, pink velvet upholstery. I have a copy of Marie Kondo's The Life-Changing Magic of Tidying Up, and also Margarita Magnusson's The Gentle Art of Swedish Death Cleaning, How to Free Yourself and Your Family from a Lifetime of Clutter. I've read bits and pieces of each book. I understand the process, but I'm not quite ready yet. Now that we've pared some of it down, I like living with an amalgamation of things from both sides of our family. Also, I don't want it to feel like I'm living in a motel room or a page out of the Pottery Barn catalog. I am not a minimalist. I have grown to love much of the stuff. I like knowing the rug I am walking across was one my grandparents also walked on. The ceramic pig on our mantle was once my great Aunt Gladys's, and I really liked her a lot. I loved my grandmother Alma, and every time I look at the goose, which is on the other side of the mantle, I think of her, and that's very fitting since they were both sisters. But there's also a piece of pumice on the kitchen windowsill that my oldest son picked up in his travels, along with 4 mushrooms my other son carved for me. I've learned something else. If you wait long enough or read enough, you'll find something that you can live with. So there's a fairly new design trend called cluttercore. It's based on the love of stuff. It's gained popularity because a lot of people don't like living in a space where everything seems beige or gray. According to Country Living, it is happily chaotic, less precise, and a lot more authentic. So that's my style. I just didn't know it had a name. Our reality is that 36 years later, we are still living in the same big old farmhouse. I know when we need to downsize, a lot will have to go. But when the time comes, I do promise my sons that I will ask what they might like to have. Then I'll Marie Kondo, Swedish death clean, minimalize, and simplify the rest of it away.
Now, we invite you to share your thoughts on stuff. What do you do with yours? Or actually, anything you'd like to share with us. We'll start on Zoom. So please just unmute yourself and speak up.
Hi, my name is Jane Prairie, and this is such a fun topic. Thank you so much. I would just like to share that something that I've discovered this year through my recovery journey is a 12-step program called Clutterers Anonymous. And it's really fun, and there's support, accountability, different ways of thinking about the challenges with letting go. Bookmarking, meaning like you book and you start connecting with someone before you do a 1-hour project, and then you call them and get praise afterwards. What a great job you did. It's really fun. And yeah, it's helping me make a little headway. Thanks.
I'm Lindy Huff on Zoom. This brought to mind this wonderful topic that when I was little, my two sisters and me, and my mother and father put all our stuff, kind of things that were hand-me-down clothes that I was to get eventually from my sisters, and things that my parents didn't want. So one of the more interesting things to do in my house was to go up to the attic and poke around and see what was in Polly's box, which was her clothes that I would eventually get, and try on things, and then the cat came up there, and the only thing that was a little nerve-wracking about it was that there were open, exposed wires that you had to be very careful not to go in between the beams. And I don't think it could have been too dangerous, or our parents wouldn't have allowed us to go up there. But it brought to mind that there is kind of a purpose for things that are kept until, as we all are noticing here, we really have to pare down. And as we get older and older, I look at my books and I think, I should do every 5th book I will get rid of, or I will just go through and methodically each week take a carton or two to Goodwill. Anyway, great topic. I didn't think it would be particularly, but it is.
Okay. For those in the sanctuary, please come up and I'll hand you the mic.
Turn on the mic, and there I am. I am the queen of decluttering. There is nothing that gives me more genuine joy than being invited to come to your house and help you make order out of chaos. I truly do love it. And I think my kids would attest that I even love it in my own life. It gives me great, great pleasure to ask whether this, like Marie Kondo, does it spark joy? Doesn't even have to spark joy, but that kind of question, I really do enjoy it. And yet, I think the reason that I keep things that might not have a purpose, that might not have value, they're not going to be sold on eBay, are the stories that go with them. And those can reside in the smallest of things. They reside in that really wonderful old spatula that my father used every Sunday morning when he cooked pancakes. And it is thin and flexible and worn. The handle is completely devoid of paint. It's a better spatula functionally than any I've gotten since, but it also brings those pancakes with it every time I look at it. There's another object in my house that has absolutely no utility, and I don't even know if it has much beauty, but it reminds me of my mother-in-law, who was a devoted antique collector, as far from me as you could possibly be. And she would often think of antiques as the perfect gift for someone else. So there was the Christmas morning when my father-in-law opened a rather large box and waded through a lot of paper and uncovered a large, polished, brown, wooden duck. A duck. And he was a polite, thoughtful man, and he said, "Oh, why, it's a duck." "Thank you, dear." And that's really nice. And she went to explain where she'd found the duck and how it was a wonderful antique, and she was sure that he would really love it. And so he put her gift on the shelf, and it was there all the years of their marriage. And when we were going to Jerry's parents' house after his father died and looking for things that perhaps someone in the family would like, we realized we had to have the duck. And ever since then, the sort of tradition in my family is if there's something you love and would like to see in your house, but you can't quite justify buying it for yourself, you give it to someone else in the family, namely maybe me to Jerry. And when you open it up and you have no clue, but you have a suspicion why this was bought, you get to say, "Oh, it's a duck." So those are the things that matter far more than the sheets and the towels and the furniture and the this and that. It's the stories that a small object has for you.
Thank you, Barbara.
Much easier to talk this time. The stuff I wanted to talk about were things that are not what you think of as just stuff. There's certain tools that I use in my shop and my flute. It's stuff that makes stuff. And my tools and my flute are both in really good condition and do wonderful things. And my big worry is I want somebody to use those to make more stuff after I'm done. The rest of it, I don't care.
Thanks, Mike.
Other people's attics. I grew up on a farm. My grandparents lived in the big old farmhouse, actually 2 houses that had been moved to the site and pushed together. The first floors lined up, the second floors didn't. And so it had 2 of everything, 2 basements, 2 big rooms, 4 porches, and 2 attics. And I would go up there as a kid, and there was all this old stuff that tells you a lot about who they were. Fashionable dresses from the 1920s hanging on a rack. An old copy of Uncle Tom's Cabin, an airline brochure from 1930s, which turned out to be, the story was my grandfather, who was in the Rural Electrification Administration. The local board got a trip to Washington, D.C., and he flew on the DC-3. And then there was, and of course, my Aunt Dorothy's movie magazines featuring Greta Garbo. And then there was this big board, piece of wood with an old wooden ice cream maker on it with a belt drive to an electric motor. And the story was my dad got tired of cranking ice cream, and he automated the thing by attaching it to an electric motor.
Thank you, Jim. Oh, sure.
Apparently, we all have a lot to say about this topic. I'm one of those people who likes getting rid of things, and I think it's deeply connected to my sense of Yankee thrift. As a librarian, we're trained that a book only has value in the hands of a reader. And I feel like that about objects. I love connecting an object to somebody who will like love it real, you know, like the Velveteen Rabbit. And because of that, I'm a huge fan of the Buy Nothing Project. Any Buy Nothing people in here? And is Kathy here today? I met Kathy, she's a member here, through Buy Nothing. She gave my son a really beautiful digital camera so that you can do so Buy Nothing is kind of an anti-capitalist, anti-consumerist, international group where people just give each other stuff. And you can find yours on social media. I cannot believe the things I have received and given away. You can also do like an ISO in search of. I've gotten books for the school library there. I remember a couple of years ago, there was a woman, actually I think she was like the moderator for our Buy Nothing, and her son wanted a poop stuffy for Christmas, like a poop-shaped stuffed, I don't think you can call it an animal. And she said, I refuse to spend my money on this item. Does anybody on here have a poop stuffy? Guess who had a poop stuffy? I did. So I, put it in a bag and I left it on my porch. This is the other thing I like about Buy Nothing. I don't have time to go to Goodwill. I don't. Often I'll go and I'll have my bag and it'll be like, no, donations are closed for today. But I'll be like, it'll be 4 months before I can come back. And I can't carry this around in my trunk. Buy Nothing, I can leave it on my porch and somebody will take it away. And her little boy was so excited to receive the poop stuffy, which had been given to my dog as like a dog toy. And I was like, she doesn't need a poop stuffy. And it's just, I got a beautiful lamp that somebody dropped off on my porch. Both the couches I now have in the Deering High School library were from Buy Nothing. And it's just wonderful. And so I just want to say, join Buy Nothing. It helps build community. It gives those objects a new life and people who will love them. So, thanks.
Thank you. Thank you, everybody. I'm sorry. The clock says we need to stop. And now please join us in our final hymn, "'Tis a Gift to Be Simple," number 16 in the gray hymnal. And Cynthia will play it through once. And please stand in body or spirit. After our benediction and extinguishing the chalice, you are invited to remain seated in silence for a time of integration and reflection while I think it's Keith that's offering the postlude. Cynthia, I'm sorry. Let us be that circle. These are the words of Craig Rowland. As we extinguish this flame, may we carry its warmth into the world, not as a memory, but as a promise that you deserve, a place where your voice matters, where your laughter is treasured, and your silence is honored, You deserve a circle that sees your scars and your strength, your doubts and your radiance, and holds them all with care. Let us be that circle for one another, a community of fierce welcome, wild grace, and radical hope. Go knowing you belong here, you always have. Thank you so much, Cynthia. And thank you, Keith, too. That was wonderful music. And I can't let this end without the usual ending. So our worship has ended and our service begins. Thank you, everybody.